a love for directing and a love for working with students. And that's actually what I'm going to be going into when I go off to college next year. And I'm really, really excited about that. And I'm so thankful for my friends backstage who allowed me this opportunity. And they've worked so hard. They're so fun. They're beautiful souls, and I love them to death. And I'm really excited that you get to see all of their hard work. So, a couple more things. We'll be having an intermission between Act 1 and 2. It's about 10 minutes long, and we'll be selling concessions back there. All the proceeds go back into the CC Drama Group. And please turn off your phones. And besides that, sit back, relax, and enjoy Pride and Prejudice.
It is a truth universally acknowledged that a single man in possession of the good fortune must be in want of a wife.
However little known the feelings or views of such a man may be on his first entering into. This truth is so well fixed in the minds of the surrounding families that he is considered the rightful father of some or other of their daughters.
My dear Mr. Bennet, have you heard that Netherfield Park is let at last? Do you not want to know who has taken it?
As you wish to tell me, I doubt I have any choice in the matter.
Mrs. Long says that Netherfield has been taken by a young man of large fortune from the north of England. He came down on Monday to see the place and was so much delighted with it he took possession of it this very week.
Why, what is his name?
Bingley! Bingley!
Is he married or single?
Oh, single, my dear, to be sure. What a fine thing for our girls.
How so? How can it affect them?
My dear Mr. Bennet, how can you be so tiresome? You must know that I'm thinking of his marrying one of them.
Is that his design in settling here?
Design? Nonsense! How can you talk so? But it is very likely that he may fall in love with one of them, and therefore you must visit him as soon as he comes.
Very well. You or the girls may go. Perhaps you may send them by themselves, for as you are the handsomest of the bunch, Mr. Bingley may like you the most.
Oh, my dear, you flatter me. I've certainly had my share of beauty, but when a woman has 5 grown-up daughters, she ought to give over thinking of her own beauty. My dear, you must indeed go see Mr. Bingley when he comes into the neighbourhood.
Very well. I will send a few letters. By you to assure him of my hearty consent to him marrying whichever of my daughters he pleases. Although I must throw in a good word for my dear Lizzie.
Lizzie is not a bit better than the others, and I'm sure she's not half so as handsome as Jane, nor half so good-humoured as Lydia. But you are always giving her the preference.
They're all silly and ignorant like other girls. But Lizzie has something more of a quickness than her sisters.
Will you take delight in vexing me? You have no compassion for my poor nerves.
My dear, I have the highest respect for your nerves. They have been my dear companions these 20 years at least.
Oh!
I hope Bingley will like your hat, Lizzie.
We are not in a way to know what Mr. Bingley likes, since we are not to visit.
But you forgot, Mamma, that we shall meet him at the assemblies, and that Mrs. Long promised to introduce him.
I do not believe Mrs. Long would do any such thing. She has 2 nieces of her own. She's a selfish, hypocritical woman, and I have no opinion of her.
No more have I, and I'm glad to find that you do not depend on her serving.
For pity's sake, don't keep coughing so, Kitty. Have a little compassion on my nerves. You tear them to pieces.
I do not cough for my own amusement. When is the next ball to be?
Tomorrow fortnight. Aye, so it is, and Mrs. Long does not come back till the day before, so it'll be impossible for her to introduce him, for she will not know him herself. Oh, I am sick of Mr. Bingley.
Well, that is unfortunate. But why did you not say so earlier? If I'd known as much this morning, I would certainly not have called it. But as I've actually paid the visit, we cannot escape the acquaintance now.
Oh, Mr. Bennet! You at the next ball. Mr. Bingley is good looking. And such a gentleman.
His sisters had an air of decided fashion.
His friend, Mrs. Fitzwilliam Darcy. He has a noble mien. He has 10,000 a year.
He is such a fine figure of a man.
And so much handsomer than Mrs. Bingley.
There are a great many pretty women in the room. Which do you think is the prettiest?
Oh, the eldest Miss Bennet beyond a doubt. There cannot be two opinions on that matter. Miss Bennet, you are nice to dance.
What a charming amusement for young people this is, Mr. Darcy. There is nothing like dancing after all. I consider it as one of the first refinements of polished society.
Certainly, sir. It has the added advantage of also being known amongst the less polished societies of the world. Every savage can dance.
How do you find Netherfield, Mr. Darcy?
Mr. Bingley is pleased with the situation.
Upon my word, I have never seen so many pretty girls in my life.
You are dancing with the handsome woman in the room.
No doubt she is the most beautiful creature I ever beheld. But no doubt her sister Elizabeth is very agreeable as well.
Perfectly tolerable, I dare say, but not handsome enough to pretend to me. You'd better go and return to your partner and enjoy her smiles, if you're wasting your time.
I have rarely seen a collection of people in whom there was so little beauty.
Oh, Mr. Darcy is so proud. Most forbidding.
Disagreeable.
Unworthy to be compared with Mr. Bingley.
One cannot wonder that so very fine young man with family, fortune, and everything in his favor should think highly of himself. If I may so express it, he has a right to be proud.
I could easily forgive his pride had he not mortified mine. Pride is a very common failing, I believe. By all that I've ever read, I'm convinced that human nature is particularly prone to it, and that there are very few of us who do not hold a feeling of self-complacency on the score of some quality or another, real or imaginary.
You do not lose much by not suiting his fancy, Eliza, for he is a very disagreeable man. Not at all with his.
I believe I may safely promise you never to dance with him. Lizzie, Mr. Bingley is just what a young man ought to be. He's sensible, lively, good-humored. I never saw such happy manners, and he was so much at ease, with such perfect good breeding.
He was also handsome, which a young man ought likewise to be, if he possibly can.
I was very much flattered at his asking me to dance a second time. I had not expected such a compliment.
But that is one great difference between us. Compliments always take you by surprise, and me never. He could not help seeing that you were about 5 times as pretty as every other woman in the room. I give you leave to like him. You have liked many a stupider person.
Dear Lizzie,
I never heard you speak ill of a human being in your life.
I would not wish to be hasty in censoring anyone, but I always think what I think.
I know you do, and it is that which makes the wonder. Tell me, do you like this man's sisters too? Their manners are not equal to his.
Certainly not, at first, but they are very pleasing women when you converse with them. Miss Bingley is to live with her brother and keep his house, and I'm much mistaken if we shall find a very charming neighbor.
I am not so convinced. But, as you say, Mr. Bingley is just what a young man ought to be.
Mr. Bingley inherited property to the amount of nearly £100,000 from his father.
Miss Caroline Bingley presides at her brother's table, as does his eldest sister, Mrs. Hurst, who married a man of more fashion than fortune. A letter addressed to Miss Bennet, ma'am, from Netherfield Hall.
It's from Miss Caroline Bingley. My dear friend, if you are not so compassionate as to dine with Louisa and I today, we shall be in danger of hating each other for the rest of our lives. Come as quick as you can on reception of this. My brother and the gentleman are to dine with the officers. Yours ever,
Caroline Bingley. With the officers? One of my accidents in that tell us of Mr. Bingley dining with the officers.
and it is raining very hard. I am uneasy for her.
If the rain continues the whole night without intermission, he certainly cannot come back.
Mrs. Bennet will be delighted. Good morning, Miss Elizabeth. A letter from Bennet.
Thank you, Mrs. Hill. It's from Jane. My dearest Lizzie, I find myself very unwell this morning, which I suppose is to be imputed to my getting wet through yesterday. My kind friends will not hear of my returning till I am better. They also insist upon my seeing Mr. Jones. Therefore, do not be alarmed if you hear of his having been to me, and, excepting a sore throat and headache, there is not much the matter with me. Yours, Jane.
Well, my dear, if your daughter does die, it will be a comfort to know that it was all in pursuit of Mr. Bingley.
I am not afraid of her dying. People do not die of little trifling colds. And I would go and see her if I could have the carriage.
I would go and see if I could have the carriage. The carriage is not to be had, and as I am no horsewoman, I suppose walking is my only alternative.
Is this a hint to me, Lizzie, to send for the horses?
No, indeed. I do not wish to avoid the walk. The distance is nothing when one has a motive, only 3 miles. I shall be back by dinner.
I admire the activity of your benevolence, but every impulse of feeling should be guided by reason, and, in my opinion, exertion should always be in proportion to what is required.
You write uncommonly fast.
You're mistaken. I write rather slowly.
How many letters you must have occasion to write in the course of a year? Letters of business, too. How odious I should think them.
It is fortunate, then, that they call my lot of yours.
Pray, tell your sister that I long to see her.
I've already told her so once, by your desire.
I'm afraid you do not like your pen. Here, let me mend it for you. I mend pens remarkably well.
Thank you, but I always mend my own.
Yes, Elizabeth Bennet.
Good morning.
My word!
Please, pardon my appearance. May I inquire after my sister?
Miss Bennet slept in, and though up is very feverish, and not well enough to leave her room.
Did you walk from Longford, Miss Bennet?
I did.
I say! You will want to be taken to your sister immediately. Alfred, please show Miss Elizabeth Bennet to her sister's room.
Thank you.
She really looked almost wild.
She did indeed, Louisa. I could hardly keep my countenance.
Very nonsensical to come and talk.
Why would she be scampering about the country because her sister has a cold? Her hair so untidy, so blousy.
Yes, and her petticoat. I hope you saw her petticoat. 6 inches deep in mud, I'm absolutely certain. And the gown, would she put that down to hide it? Not in its office.
description may have been very exact, Louisa. All of this was lost upon me. I thought Miss Elizabeth Bennet looked remarkably well when she entered the room. Her decked petticoat quite escaped my notice.
You observed it, Mr. Darcy, I'm sure, and I'm inclined to think you would not wish your sister to make such an exhibition.
Certainly not.
To walk 3 miles or 4 miles or 5 miles or whatever it is, up to her ankles in dirt and alone, quite alone. What can she mean by it? It seems to me to show an abominable sort of conceited independence.
A most country town indifference to decorum.
Shows an affection for her sister, which is very pleasing.
I have an excessive regard for Miss Jane Bennet. She really is a very sweet girl, and I wish with all my heart she was well settled. With such a father and mother, and such low connections, I'm afraid there's no chance to me.
I think I heard you say their uncle is an attorney in Meryton.
Yes, and they have another who lives somewhere near Cheapside.
Oh, that is capital.
They had enough uncles to fill all of Cheapside. It would not make them one bit less agreeable.
But it must very materially lessen the chances of marrying men of any consideration.
Alfred, as Miss Jane Bennet is feeling no better, my sisters and I feel obliged to invite Miss Elizabeth Bennet to stay here at Netherfield with us. Please dispatch a servant to Longbourn to acquaint the family of her stay and bring back a supply of goods.
Very good, sir. Will Miss Elizabeth be joining the dinner party? Or should another tray go to Miss Jane Bennet's room for her?
I'm certain Miss Elizabeth Bennet will be joining us for dinner. Thank you, Alfred.
Cards, Miss Bennet. That is rather singular.
Oh, Miss Bennet despises cards. She's a great reader and takes no pleasure in anything else.
I deserve neither such praise nor such censure. I am not a great reader, and I take pleasure in many things.
In nursing your sister, I'm sure you find pleasure, and I hope it will be soon increased by seeing her quite well.
Thank you.
Mr. Darcy, is Miss Darcy much grown since the spring? Will she be as tall as I am?
I think she will be. She's now about Miss Elizabeth Bennet's height, or rather taller.
How I long to see her again. Such a countenance, such manners, and so accomplished. Her performance on the pianoforte is exquisite.
It is amazing how all young ladies can have such patience to be so very accomplished as they all are.
All young ladies accomplished. My dear Charles, what do you mean?
Yes, all accomplished. I am sure I have never heard a young lady spoken of for the first time without being informed that she was very accomplished.
I cannot boast of knowing more than half a dozen. The whole range of my acquaintances are really accomplished.
And you must comprehend a great deal in your idea of an accomplished woman.
Oh, certainly. A woman must have a thorough knowledge of music, singing, drawing, dancing, and the modern languages to deserve the word. And besides all this, she must possess a certain something in her air and manner of walking, the tone of her voice, her address and expressions, or the word will be but half so.
All this she must possess, and yet to all this she must yet add something more substantial, the improvement of her mind through extensive reading.
I am no longer surprised at your knowing only 6 accomplished women. I rather wonder now at your knowing any.
Are you so severe upon your own sex as to doubt the possibility of this?
I never saw such a woman. I never saw such capacity and taste and application and elegance as you describe united.
I know many women who answer this description.
Miss Eliza, allow me to persuade you to take a turn about the room with me. I assure you it is so refreshing after sitting so long in one attitude. Mr. Darcy, will you not join us?
I would only interfere.
Whatever can you mean, Miss Bennet?
Our surest way of disappointing him will be to ask nothing about it.
Nay, I insist upon knowing an explanation of your motives, Mr. Darcy.
You have the chosenest method of passing the evening because you want each other's confidence, have secret affairs to discuss, or because you are conscious that your figures appear to the greatest advantage in walking. If the first, I'd be entirely in your way. If the second, I could admire you much better from here.
Oh, shocking! How shall we punish him for such a speech?
Laugh at him.
Mr. Darcy is not to be laughed at.
The wisest and the best of men may be rendered ridiculous by a person whose first object in life is a joke.
Certainly there are such people, but I am not one of them. I hope I never ridicule what is wise and good. Follies and nonsense, whims and inconsistencies do divert me, I own, and I laugh at them whenever I can.
It's been the study of my life to avoid such weaknesses, which often expose a strong understanding to ridicule.
Such as vanity and pride.
Yes, vanity is a weakness certainly. Pride, where there's a real superiority of mind, pride will always be under good regulation.
Your examination of Mr. Darcy is over, I presume. And pray, what is the result?
I am perfectly convinced that Mr. Darcy has no defect. He owns it himself without disguise.
No, I've made no such pretension. I have faults enough, but they are not, I hope, of understanding. My temper, I do not vouch for. I cannot forgive the follies and vices of others so soon as I ought, nor their offenses against myself. My good opinion, once lost, is lost forever.
That is a failing indeed. But you have chosen your fault well. I really cannot laugh at it. You are safe from me.
There is, I believe, in every disposition, a natural defect, which not even the best education can overcome.
And your defect is to hate everybody.
And yours is to willfully misunderstand it.
Do let us have a little music.
Miss Elizabeth sent a written request begging Miss Jane, Mrs. Bennet, to send a carriage for her and Miss Jane in the course of the day.
Mrs. Bennet sent word back that they could not possibly have the carriage until the next Tuesday.
Miss Elizabeth was positively against staying any longer. She urged Miss Jane to request the Bingley carriage, and the original design of leaving Netherfield that very morning was sustained.
Jane and Lizzie were not welcomed home very cordially by Mrs. Bennet.
But their father was glad to see them. The evening conversation had lost much of its animation and almost all of its sense by the absence of Jane and Elizabeth.
Several of the officers have dined lately with Uncle Phillips. A private was flawed.
Does anyone know why?
Probably for flirting with Lydia.
I hope, my dear, that you have prepared a good dinner for us tonight. I have reason to expect an addition to our family party.
Who do you mean, my dear?
The person of whom I speak is a gentleman and a stranger.
Colonel Forster? Captain Carter? No, I know. Captain Denny. Or a new recruit.
Which is Mr. Bingley, I am sure. Well, I am sure I should be very glad to see Mr. Bingley.
Lydia, my lovely Isabel, I must speak to Mrs. Hill this moment.
No, it is not Mr. Bingley. It is a person of whom I've never seen in the whole course of my life. It is from your cousin, Mr. Collins, who, as soon as I am dead, may turn you all out of this house as soon as he pleases. About a month ago, I received this letter. And about a fortnight ago, I answered it, for I believed it to be a matter of some delicacy and requiring early attention.
Oh, my dear, I cannot bear to hear that mentioned. Pray do not talk of that odious man. I do think it is the hardest thing in the world that your estate should be entailed away from your own children. And I am sure that if I had been you, I should have long ago done something or other about it.
Mother, I tried to explain to you the nature of the entail. I know you are bitterly against the cruelty of settling an estate away from a family of 5 daughters in favor of a man who nobody cares anything about. But father cannot do anything about it.
It is certainly a most iniquitous affair, and nothing can clear Mr. Collins from the guilt of inheriting Longbourn. But if you will listen to his letter, he may be somewhat softened by his manner of expressing himself.
I'm sure I shall not. I think it is very impertinent of him to write to you at all and very hypocritical. I hate such false friends. Why can he not keep on quarreling with you as his father did before him?
He does seem to have had some filial scruples on that head, as you will hear. Mary?
Dear sir, the disagreement subsisting between yourself and my late honored father always gave me much uneasiness. And since I have had the misfortune to lose him, I frequently wished to heal the breach. Having received ordination at Easter, I have been so fortunate as to be distinguished by the patronage of the Right Honourable Lady Catherine de Bourgh, whose bounty and beneficence has conferred me to the valuable rectory of this parish. As a clergyman, I feel it is my duty to promote and establish the blessing of peace in all families, and on these grounds I flatter myself that my present overtures are highly commendable, and that the circumstance of my being next in the entail of Longbourn estate will be kindly overlooked on your side, and not lead you to reject the offered olive branch. I cannot be otherwise than concerned at being the means of injuring your amiable daughters, and beg leave to apologize for it, as well as to assure you of my readiness to make them every possible amends. But of this hereafter, I remain, dear sir, with respectful compliments to your lady and daughters, your well-wisher and friend, William Collins. In point of composition, the letter does not seem defective. There's something very pompous in his style. The idea of the olive branch perhaps is not wholly new, but I think it is well expressed.
Well, if he is disposed to make the girls amends, I shall not be the person to discourage him.
Mr. Bennet's property consists of an estate of 2,000 a year, which unfortunately for his daughters was entailed in default of her male heir.
Mrs. Bennet's fortune, though ample enough for her situation in life, could ill supply the deficiency of his. She has only £4,000 in all.
Mrs. Bennet, may I compliment you on having such a fine family of daughters? I have heard much of their beauty, but in this instance, fame has fallen short of the truth. I have no doubt in my mind that you shall see all of them disposed of and married in due time.
You are very kind, I am sure, and I wish with all my heart it may prove so. Else they will be destitute enough.
You allude to the entails of the estate. I am very sensible, madam, of the heart of my fair cousins, and could say much on the subject, but I am cautious about appearing forward.
Lady Catherine, your patroness, I think you said she is a widow, sir? Has she any family?
She has one daughter, yes, the heiress of Rosens. Rosens is a very extensive property.
And what sort of young lady is she? Is she handsome?
She's a most charming young lady indeed. However, she is of a sickly constitution, which prevents her from making progress in many accomplishments. Mr. Berg's indifferent state of health prevents her from being in the town, and by that means, as I told Lady Catherine one day, deprived the British courts of one of its brightest ornaments. Her ladyship seemed pleased with the idea. You may assure yourself that I am happy on every occasion to offer those little delicate compliments, which are always so acceptable to ladies.
Do these pleasing attentions proceed from the impulse of the moment, or are they a result of a previous study?
They arise chiefly from whatever is passing at the time. And though sometimes I do amuse myself with suggesting and arranging such little elegant compliments as to be adapted into ordinary occasions, I strive to give them an unstudied an air as possible.
No one would ever think otherwise. Good night, Mr. Collins.
Mrs. Bennet, would you do me the honor? I think the time is right to speak about the most pressing issue. That is, if the ladies would be so kind as to excuse us for a moment.
Yes, of course, Mr. Collins. Good night, girls.
As you know, I have a very particular and fortunate relationship with Lady Catherine de Bourgh. Well, Lady Catherine has condescended to advise me to marry as soon as possible, provided I choose with discretion. Having a good house now and sufficient income, I intend on marrying, and seeking reconciliation with the Lundberg family, I am to choose one of your daughters. I have the strictest notion of what is due in seniority, and Miss Jane Bennet is my choice.
Oh, I do wish to caution against choosing my eldest daughter. Jane, I must mention, is likely to be very soon engaged.
Ah, well then I only have to change from Jane to Elizabeth. Elizabeth is second to Jane in seniority, and is as equal in beauty.
Yes, I quite agree.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Collins.
Mrs. Bennet might have 2 daughters married.
Won't Miss Lizzie be surprised? Good day, Mr. Denny. Welcome back from town. Did you have a successful trip?
I did indeed, Miss Lydia. May I have permission to introduce you to my friend Mr. Wickham? Mr. Wickham has just come with me from town and has accepted, I am happy to say, a commission in our courts. Mr. Wickham, this is Miss Jane Bennet, Miss Elizabeth Bennet, and Miss Lydia Bennet.
Ladies, it was the prospect of good society that was my chief inducement to enter the corps. I knew it to be a most agreeable, respectable corps, and my friend Denny tempted me further by the excellent society Meryton has to offer. I can see now that Mr. Denny did not exaggerate.
Good day, ladies. Miss Bennet. I was just on my way to Longwood to inquire after your help and to give you and the entire family my personal invitation to the ball at Netherfield.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Bingley. I am sure that we will all accept your kind invitations. Mr. Bingley, Mr. Darcy, I believe you already know Mr. Denny, and this is Mr. Wickham.
Mr. Wickham has just come from London, and he is now lieutenant's commission.
Welcome to Meryton, Mr. Wickham. Well, good day, ladies. I look forward to seeing you at the Netherfield ball.
Thank you, Mr. Bingley. Good day.
Come on, Mr. Denny. Let's go buy some ribbons.
How long has Mr. Darcy been staying at Netherfield, do you know?
About a month. He is a man of very large property in Derbyshire.
Yes, his estate there is a noble one. You could not have met with a person more capable of giving you certain information on that head than myself. for I have been acquainted with his family in a particular manner from my infancy. You may well be surprised at such an assertion after seeing the very cold manner of our greeting. Are you much acquainted with Mr. Darcy?
I have spent 4 days in the same house with him, and I think him very disagreeable.
I have no right to give my opinion as to his being agreeable or otherwise. I have known him too long and too well to be a fair judge. It is impossible for me to be impartial.
Oh, but he is not at all liked in Hertfordshire. Everybody is disgusted with his pride. You will not find him favorably spoken of by anyone.
Is he likely to be in this country much longer?
I heard nothing of his going away. I hope your plans will not be affected by his being in the neighborhood.
Oh no, it is not for me to be driven away by Mr. Darcy. If he wishes to avoid seeing me, he must go. A military life is not what I was intended for, but circumstances have now made it eligible. The church ought to have been my profession, and I should at this time have been in possession of a most valuable living, had it pleased the gentleman we were speaking of just now. Yes, the late Mr. Darcy bequeathed me the next presentation of the best living in his gift. He was my godfather, and excessively attached to me. He meant to provide for me amply, and thought he had done it. But when the living fell, it was given elsewhere.
Good heavens! But how could that be? How could his will be disregarded? Or why did you not seek legal redress?
There was just such an informality in the terms of the bequest as to give me no hope from law. A man of honor could not have doubted its intentions, but Mr. Darcy chose to doubt it. Certain it is that 2 years ago the living became vacant, exactly as I was of an age to hold it, and it was given to another man.
Oh, what can have been his motive? What can have induced him to behave so cruelly?
Had the late Mr. Darcy liked me less, his son might have borne with me better. His father's uncommon attachment to me irritated him, I believe, very early on in life. He had not a temper to bear the sort of competition in which we stood, the sort of preference which was often to me.
I had not thought Mr. Darcy so bad as this.
Almost all his actions may be traced to pride. Pride has often been his best friend. It has often led him to be liberal and generous, to display hospitality, to relieve the poor and assist his tenants. Family pride and filial pride have done this. He has also a brotherly pride, which, with some brotherly affection, makes him a very kind and careful guardian of his sister, and you will hear him generally cried up as the best and most attentive of brothers.
What sort of girl is Miss Darcy?
I wish I could call her amiable. It gives me pain to speak ill of Darcy, but she is too much like her brother, very, very proud.
I am astonished at his intimacy with Mr. Bingley. How could Mr. Bingley, who seems good humor itself and is, I really believe, truly amiable, be in friendship with such a man? How can they suit each other?
Mr. Darcy can please where he chooses. He can be a conversable companion, if he thinks it worth his while. Among those who are at all his equals in consequence, he is a very different man than what he is to the less prosperous.
but it is certain that Jane will soon be married to Mr. Bingley. Oh, he is such a charming young man and so rich and is but 3 miles from Longbourn. Oh, it is such a comfort to think of how fond the 2 Bingley sisters are of Jane. Oh, they must desire the connection as much as we do. Oh, it is moreover such a promising thing for my younger daughters, as Jane's marrying so well will throw them in the way of other rich men.
Careful, Mrs. Bennet. I fear a conversation is being overheard by Mr. Darcy.
But is Mr. Darcy to be afraid that I should be afraid of him? I'm sure we owe him no such particular civility as to be obliged to say nothing he may not like to hear.
For heaven's sake, Mrs. Bennet, speak lower.
Bingley likes his sister Darcy, but he may never do more than like her. She does not help him on a bit. But she does help him on as much as her nature will allow. But though Jane and Bingley meet tolerably often, it is never for many hours together. And as there are always large mixed parties, she should therefore make the most of every half hour in which she can command his attention. When she is secure, there will be leisure for falling in love, as much as she so chooses.
Mr. Denny, I have looked in vain for Mr. Wickham among the pleasant faculty here assembled.
Mr. Wickham was obliged to go into town on business the day before, and has not yet returned.
Did Mr. Bingley purposely omit an invitation to Mr. Wickham because of Mr. Darcy?
No. But I do not imagine his business would have called him away just now, if it had not been for a certain gentleman there. Miss Catherine, may I have the next up?
Of course.
Lydia.
It is my intention, if I may be so bold, to remain close to you throughout the evening, Miss Elizabeth.
Miss Bennet, may I have the next dance?
You may.
I love a hole in the wall.
Indeed.
It is your turn to say something, Mr. Darcy. I talked about the dance, now you ought to remark on the size of the room, or the number of couples.
I'm perfectly happy to oblige. Please advise what would you like most to hear.
Very well, that reply will do for the present. Perhaps by and by I may observe that private balls are much pleasanter than public ones. But now we may be silent.
What do I rule then when you're dancing?
One must speak a little, you know. It would look odd to be entirely silent for half an hour together.
I have been most highly gratified indeed. Such superior dancing is not often seen. It is evident that you belong in the first circle. Allow me to say, however, that your fair partner does not disgrace you. And I would hope to have this pleasure often repeated, especially when a certain desirable event, my dear Eliza, shall take place. What congratulations will then flow in? I appeal to Mr. Darcy. But let me not interrupt you. You will not thank me for detaining you from the bewitching converse of this young lady whose bright eyes are also upbraiding me.
When you met us in Meryton the other day, we had just been forming a new acquaintance.
Mr. Wickham is blessed with such happy manners may ensure his making friends. Whether he may be equally as capable in retaining them is less certain.
I remember hearing you once say, Mr. Darcy, that you hardly ever forgave, that your resentment once created was unappeasable. You are very cautious, I suppose, as to its being created.
I am.
And never allow yourself to be blinded by prejudice?
I hope not.
So, Miss Eliza, I hear you are quite delighted with George Wickham. Your sister has been talking to me about him and asking me 1,000 questions, and I find that the young man quite forgot to tell you that he's merely the son of old Wickham, the late Mr. Darcy's steward. Let me recommend you, however, as a friend, not to give implicit confidence to all his assertions, For as to Mr. Darcy's using him ill, it is perfectly false. For on the contrary, he has always been remarkably kind to him, though George Wickham treated Mr. Darcy in most infamous manners. I do not know the particulars, but I do know that Mr. Darcy is not in the least to blame, that he cannot bear to hear George Wickham mentioned. I pity you, Miss Eliza, for the discovery of your favourite skills. But really, considering his descent, one could not expect much better.
His guilt and his descent appear by your account to be the same. I have heard you accuse him of nothing less than being the son of Mr. Darcy's steward, and of that he informed me himself.
I beg your pardon. Excuse my interference. It was kindly meant.
What have you learnt about Mr. Wickham?
Mr. Bingley does not know the whole of his history. However, he would vouch for the good conduct and honour of his friend, and is much convinced that Mr. Wickham has deserved much less attention from Mr. Darcy than he has deserved. Lizzie, I'm sorry to say by his account, as well as his sister's, Mr. Wickham is by no means a respectable young man.
Mr. Bingley does not know Mr. Wickham himself?
I never saw him till the other morning at Meryton.
Mr. Bingley's defense of his friend was a very able one, I dare say, but since he is unacquainted with several parts of the story, and has learnt the rest from that friend himself, I shall venture to still think of those gentlemen as I did before.
Good evening, ladies. May I hope, madam, for your interest with your fair daughter Elizabeth, when I solicit for the honour of a private audience in the course of this evening?
Yes, certainly. I'm sure Lizzie will be very happy. I'm sure she'll have no objection. Come, George, upstairs.
Mr. Collins can have nothing to say to me that anybody need not hear. I am going away myself.
No, nonsense, Lizzie. I desire you stay where you are. Lizzie, I insist upon your staying and hearing Mr. Collins.
Believe me, my dear Elizabeth, your modesty, so far from doing you disgrace, rather adds to your perfection. You can hardly doubt the purport of my discourse. My intentions are too marked to be mistaken. Almost as soon as I entered the house, I singled you out as a companion of my future life. But before I run away with feelings on the subject, perhaps it would be more advisable for me to state my reasons of marrying. First, I think it right for every clergyman to set an example of matrimony in his parish. Second, I am convinced it will add greatly to my happiness. And thirdly, as I perhaps ought to have mentioned earlier, it is the particular advice and recommendation of a very noble lady whom I have the honor of calling patroness. And now nothing remains for me but to assure you in the most animated language of the violence of my affection. To fortune, I am perfectly indifferent. You may assure yourself that no ungenerous reproach shall ever pass my lips once we are married.
You are too hasty, sir. You forget that I have made no answer. Let me do it now without further loss of time. Accept my thanks for the compliments you are paying me. I am very sensible of the honor of your proposals, but it is impossible for me to do otherwise than to decline them.
I am not now to learn that it is usual for ladies to reject the addresses of the man whom they secretly mean to accept when he applies for their favor, and that the refusal is repeated a second or even a third time. I am therefore by no means discouraged by what you've just said, and shall hope to lead you to the altar ere long.
I do assure you that I am not one of those young ladies who are so daring as to risk their happiness on the chance of being asked a second time. I am perfectly serious in my refusal. You could not make me happy, and I am convinced that I am the last woman in the world who could make you so.
When I do myself the honor of speaking to you next, I shall hope for a more favorable answer.
Really, Mr. Collins, you puzzle me exceedingly. If what I have hitherto said can appear to you in the form of encouragement, I know not how to express my refusal in such a manner as to convince you of its being one.
You must give me leave to flatter myself, dear cousin, that your refusal of my addresses is merely words of course. My situation in life, my connections with the family of Berg, my relationship with your own, are circumstances highly in my favor. And you should take into further consideration that despite your manifold attractions, it is by no means certain that another offer of marriage shall ever be made to you. I must therefore conclude that you are not serious in the rejection of me, and shall attribute it to increasing my loves by suspense, as it is usual practice for elegant females.
I thank you again and again for the honor you have done me in your proposals, but to accept them is absolutely impossible. My feelings in every respect forbid it. Can I speak plainer? Do not consider me now as an elegant female intending to plague you, but as a rational creature speaking the truth from her heart. What?
You are uniformly charming, and I am persuaded that when sanctioned by the express authority of both your excellent parents, my proposals will not fail of being acceptable.
Depend upon it, Mr. Collins, that Lizzie shall be brought to reason. She is a very headstrong, foolish girl, and does not know her own interest, but I will make a note.
Pardon me for interrupting you, madam, but if she is really headstrong and foolish, I know not whether she is altogether a very desirable wife for a man in my situation, who naturally looks for happiness in the married state. If she is serious in the rejection of my suit, perhaps it would be advisable not to force her into accepting, because if liable to such defects of temper, she could not contribute much to my felicity.
Oh no, sir, you misunderstand me. Lizzie is only headstrong in matters such as these, and anything else she's as good a natured girl as ever lived. I will speak to her directly, and we shall very soon settle it with her.
Oh, Mr. Bennet! You are wanted immediately! Oh, we are all in a brawl!
You must come make Lizzie marry Mr. Collins, for she vows she will not have him, and if you do not make haste, he will change his mind and not have her.
I have not the pleasure of understanding you. What are you talking?
Mr. Collins and Lizzie! Lizzie vows she will not marry Mr. Collins, and Mr. Collins begins to say he will not have Lizzie.
Oh, it seems a hopeless business. What am I to do on the occasion?
Speak to Lizzie about your dress up, tell her that you insist upon her marrying him.
Very well, should you hear my opinion, let her be called down.
I like the man!
Elizabeth, I have sent for you on a matter of importance. It has come to my attention that Mr. Collins has made you an offer of marriage. Is this true?
It is true.
And this offer you have refused?
I have, sir.
Very well, we come now to the point. Mrs. Bennet, you insist upon her marrying Mr. Collins, do you not?
Yes, but I shall never speak to her again.
Very well then. From this point forward, Elizabeth, an unfortunate alternative lies before you. You must be a stranger to one of your parents. Your mother will never speak to you again if you do not marry Mr. Collins. But I will never speak to you again if you do.
Miss Jane received a letter from Netherfield this morning
It appears that Mr. Bingley has left the county.
and will not be coming back.
Poor Jane.
shall live in Hertfordshire, accept your society, my dearest friend. I sincerely hope your Christmas in Hertfordshire may abound in the gaieties which that season generally brings, and that your beaux will be so numerous as to prevent your feeling the loss of the three of whom we shall deprive you. It is evident by this that he comes back no more this winter.
It is only evident that Miss Bingley does not mean that he should.
Lizzie, why will you think so? It must be by his own doing, and you do not know all. I will read to you this passage, which particularly hurts me. Mr. Darcy is impatient to see his sister, and to confess the truth, we are scarcely less eager to meet her. I really do not think Georgiana Darcy has her equal for beauty, elegance, and accomplishments, and the affection she inspires in Louisa and myself is heightened into something still more interesting from the hope we dare entertain of her being hereafter our sister. Is that not clear enough? Does it not expressly declare that Caroline neither expects nor wishes me to be her sister, that she is perfectly convinced of her brother's indifference, and that if she suspects the nature of my feelings for him, she means most kindly to put me on my guard? Can there be any other opinion on the subject?
Yes, there can, for mine is totally different. Miss Bingley sees that her brother is in love with you, and wants him to marry Miss Darcy. No one who's ever seen you together can doubt his affection.
Caroline is incapable of willfully deceiving anyone. And all I can hope in this case is that she is simply deceiving herself.
I have some news. Miss Collins and I are engaged. Engaged? To Mr. Collins? My dear Charlotte, impossible. Why should you be so surprised, my dear Eliza? Do you think it is incredible Mr. Collins should be able to procure any woman's good opinion? Because he is not so happy so as to succeed with you? I'm not romantic, you know. I never was. I was only a comfortable home. And given Mr. Collins' character, connection, and situation in life, I'm convinced that my chance of happiness upon entering the marriage day is as fair as many may know.
Mr. Collins' present circumstances makes this the most eligible match. Congratulations, Charlotte.
I shall depend upon hearing from you very often, Eliza.
That you certainly shall.
Will you come and see me?
I promise.
Oh, Jane! Mrs. Gardiner invites you to town this winter.
I accepted Aunt Gonna's invitation with pleasure. I might occasionally spend the morning with Caroline, without any danger of seeing her brother.
Lydia? Tell Lizzie that her aunt also invites her to accompany her uncle and aunt on a tour of pleasure, which they propose on taking in the summer. Lydia, tell Mother I accept.
Mother, who do you think Mr. Collins proposed to this morning? Charlotte Lucas.
Charlotte Lucas! This is your doing, Elizabeth. Oh, it is very hard to think that Charlotte Lucas should ever be mistress of this house, that I should be forced to make way for her and live to see her take my place in it.
My dear, let us not give way to such gloomy thoughts. Let us flatter ourselves that I may be the survivor.
I know we could play. I know I might.
My mom said no.
With all these people running the play.
We can play hide and go seek. There's a lot of trees to get hide under.
Alright, who's gonna be it? Okay.
Andrew, you have to ask. Later, instead of running, hide and
That's not running, it's walking, Mama. Linda wants to be it. Mama? Did you spend the dollar on Mama?
I want to package it.
Did you spend the dollar? It's fine.
No, you can't play. You can't run around, but you can just go hang out with him.
He's getting big.
Don't do it to him now. He said I can play. What? You know what I'm going to have to pick this up? I'll teach you. Wait, do you know how to? Rock, paper, scissors, shoot.
By the front
Rock,
door.
paper, scissors, shoot. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. Rock with the same weapon.
Can I play with him too?
Rock, paper, no, it's only for 2 players. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. Oh no! Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. Paper, scissors, shoot. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. Hey, sure. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. 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 Rock, paper, scissors. Oh, that was a rock, paper, scissors, shoot.
Yeah, he said you killed it.
Rock, paper, scissors, shoot.
What's your next game?
Rock, paper. Oh, it's like legs straight out, and I jump over his leg, and then turn around the other guy.
Guys, the more you practice with your footwork, the better it shows. It's showing.
Is your next game? Tuesday?
My fish. Can I, Mommy? I kept getting. I don't say I got like 4 times. But the other 2 didn't call because I didn't call. And maybe I just stood and got back up right away. Like, I like this one. They also should have called it. No, not right. I haven't. A Japanese code. No. It fights everyone. No, not as Japanese. I'll show you. Always someone wants.
I know why did they play on such a small?
Well, it was just a field there. It was so they had to roll and spray, and they brought all the boards. Yeah, and they got to
Hi, Matthew. I didn't see you. I knew you were coming. I didn't see you.
And this is my dog.
Let me see your glasses. Your best. I'm going to put that one. Use out. Use out. White on. White on. White on. That's the room, Marla. Excuse me. Can't even. No video, Elijah. No videos. No, I mean the song. The songs. You made a remake actually. Video you showed me. Show me that. No, see on.
I don't know. My dog. Like, oh, look at it. Speech and debate. Right now, we're not debate. But that will help. There's a little bit of element, right, of the acting. So, but that will help because
If I were to film this, eat the muffin.
we don't have to make
Well, we can hear one more.
Okay.
Well, we can hear one more. Well, we can hear. Well, we can hear one. Yeah, he's out there. He's out there, Mom.
We have an interesting clip. Now what we're going to do is say, Mr. So-so, Mr. Be quiet, and Just stay with us. Okay. Stay with us.
People go in the line for to get food.
Sorry, we missed Peter. We like these. We like something silly. No matter what, it's better than movies.
I think he's grown up a lot, huh?
I'll try. How do you do it?
Mature, right with the...
How did he get the hand on?
Well, I think
You hold it. Daddy get it. You don't get it.
I agree.
There you go. I touched it.
Red flag. Let's get another one.
Daddy, What's happened?
It's starting. No. We got you.
Now there's not enough seats. Oh, yeah. There we go.
Tim's here.
Yeah, there's not enough room for you, Tim. Dang it. Oh, wait, we can sit back there with Ian and... No, it's like that. Tim, I guess there is. If you suck in. Okay. I know we guys are.
My dearest Lizzie, the weather here in London continues to be pleasant. My aunt Gardner went to town today, and I took the opportunity to call for Miss Bingley at Grosvenor Street. I did not think Caroline in good spirits, but she seemed very glad to see me, and reproached me for giving her no notice of my coming to London. I was right. My last letter had never reached her. I inquired after her brother, of course. He was well, but so much engaged with Mr. Darcy that they scarcely ever saw him. I found that Miss Darcy was expected to dinner. Oh, how I wish I could see her. But my visit was not long, as Caroline and Mrs. Hester were going out. I dare say I shall see them here very soon. Yours, Jane.
Miss Lizzie has just left for Huntsford.
She is going to visit her dear friend's heart.
Lizzie! Charlotte! Oh, how I've missed you. You're very welcome indeed. Come.
Welcome, dear cousin, to our humble abode. We are so delighted you've come to stay. We know how little there is in anyone to our abode. Our plain manner of living, our small rooms and few domestics, must make Huntsford extremely dull to a lady like yourself.
Oh, not at all. The house is rather small, but well built and convenient. Everything is fitted up and arranged with neatness and consistency.
Miss Elizabeth, you will have the honor of seeing Lady Catherine this very evening. I must confess that I should not have been surprised with her ladyship asking us on Sunday to drink tea. But who could have foreseen an attention as this? Who could have imagined we should receive an invitation so immediately after your arrival?
I am delighted to have received such notice, and am very eager to make her ladyship's acquaintance. Come, let us show you around the house.
Collins's cousin, Miss Elizabeth Bennet. Your ladyship.
Mr. Darcy, what's an honor, sir?
Mr. Darcy?
Miss Bennet,
You know my nephew?
I had the pleasure of meeting Miss Elizabeth in Hertfordshire, then Netherfield. Miss Bennet, may I introduce to you my cousin, Colonel Fitzwilliam?
How do you do?
May I inquire for the health of your family?
They are all quite well, thank you.
My eldest sister is currently in London. Did you happen to see her there?
Unfortunately, no.
Are any of your younger sisters out?
Yes, ma'am, all.
Oh, what? All 5 out at once? And you only the second? Very odd. Younger ones act while the elder ones are married. Your younger sisters must be very young.
My youngest is not 16. Perhaps she is full young to be much in company. I should think it would be very hard upon younger sisters that they should not have their share of society and amusement, because the elder may not have the means or inclination to marry early.
Upon my word, you speak of me very excited to say young person. Pray, what is your age?
With 3 younger sisters grown up, your ladyship can hardly expect me to own it.
You cannot be more than 20, I'm sure. Therefore, you need not conceal your age.
I am not 1 in 20.
What's that you're saying? What are you speaking of? What are you telling Miss Finn? Let me hear.
We were speaking of music.
Of music. Then pray speak aloud. It is of all subjects my delight. There are few people in England, I suppose, have more true appreciation of the subject than myself, or better natural taste. If I had ever learned, I should have been a great proficient, as would Anne if her health had allowed her to apply.
To resume our conversation, when it composes...
You mean to frighten me, Mr. Darcy, by coming in all this state to attend our conversation? I will not be alarmed. There is a stubbornness about me that never can bear to be frightened at the will of others.
You cannot really believe I'm trying to alarm you. I've had the pleasure of your acquaintance long enough to know that you find great enjoyment in occasionally professing opinions which are not in fact your own.
Your cousin will give you a very pretty notion of me and teach you not to believe a word I say. I am particularly unlucky in meeting with such a person so able to expose my real character in a part of the world where I hope to pass myself off with some degree of credit. Indeed, Mr. Darcy, it is very ungenerous of you to mention all that you knew to my disadvantage in Hertfordshire, and, give me leave to say, very impolitic too, for it is provoking me to retaliate, and such things may come out as will shock your relations to hear.
I'm not afraid of you.
Pray, let me hear what you have to accuse him of. I should like to know how he behaves among strangers.
Prepare yourself for something very dreadful. The first time of my ever seeing him in Hertfordshire was at a ball. And at this ball, what do you think he did? He danced only 4 dances. Though gentlemen were scarce, and to my certain knowledge, more than one young lady was sitting down in want of a partner.
I had not at the time the honor of knowing any young lady in the assembly beyond my own party.
True, and nobody can ever be introduced in a ballroom.
I certainly have not the talent, which some people possess, of conversing easily with those I've never seen before.
My fingers do not move over the piano in the masterly manner which so many women's do. But then, I have always supposed it to be my own fault, because I would not take the trouble of practicing.
Dinner is served, your ladyship.
making a tour of the park, as I generally do every year, and I have come to close it with a call on the parsonage.
May I offer you a cup of tea? Do you certainly leave Kent on Saturday?
Yes, if Darcy is not put off again. But I'm at his disposal. He arranges his business just as he pleases.
I imagine your cousin brought you down with him chiefly for the sake of having someone at his disposal.
I wonder he did not marry, so as to secure a lasting convenience of that kind.
Perhaps his sister does as well for the present, and as she is under his sole care, he may do what he likes with her.
No, that is an advantage which he must divide with me. I am partner with him in the guardianship of Miss Darcy. And as for marrying, it is the dearest wish of Miss Catherine that Rosings and Pemberley be united in marriage.
Miss de Bourgh. Poor Miss Bingley.
Miss Darcy is a very great favorite with some ladies of our acquaintance. I think I've heard you say you know them? Mrs. Hurst and Miss Bingley?
I know them a little. Their brother is a pleasant, gentleman-like man. He's a great friend of Darcy's. From something that he told me on the journey hither, I have reason to think Bingley very much indebted to him. It is a circumstance which Darcy should not wish to be generally known. For if it were to go round to the lady's family, it would be a most unpleasant thing.
You may depend upon our not mentioning it.
What he told me was merely this, that he congratulated himself on saving his friend from the inconvenience of a most imprudent marriage.
Did Mr. Darcy give you reasons for this interference?
I think there were some strong objections against the lady.
I do not see what right Mr. Darcy had to decide on the propriety of his friend's inclinations, or why, upon his own judgment alone, he was to determine and direct in what manner his friend was to be happy.
But as we know none of the particulars, it is not fair to condemn him. It is not to be supposed there is much affection in the case.
True. But it certainly lessens the honor of my cousin's triumph, very sadly. Thank you, Mrs. Constantine. I hope I have the pleasure of seeing you both at Rosings this evening.
Of course, Colonel Fitzroy. Please convey my apologies, Charlotte. I have a headache. I cannot attend the party at Rosings this evening. Thank you.
My dearest Lizzie, I confess myself to have been entirely deceived in Miss Bingley's regard for me. Caroline did not return my visit till yesterday, and not a note, not a line did I receive in the meantime. When she did come, it was very evident that she had no pleasure in it. She made a slight formal apology for not calling before, said not a word of wishing to ever see me again, and was in every respect so altered a creature that when she went away I was perfectly resolved to continue this acquaintance no longer. I cannot but wonder, however, at her having any fears now, because if he had at all cared about me, we must have met long ago. He knows of my being in town, I am certain, from something Miss Bingley said herself, and yet it would seem by her manner of talking as if she wanted to persuade herself that he is really partial to Miss Darcy. If I were not afraid of judging harshly, I would almost be tempted to say that there's a strong appearance of duplicity in all of this. Let me hear from you very soon. Yours, Jane.
Mr. Darcy.
In vain. I have struggled. It will not do. My feelings will not be repressed. You must allow me to tell you how ardently I admire and love you. In declaring my feelings for you, I am going against the wishes of my family, my friends, and my own better judgment. The situation of your mother's family, though objectionable, is nothing in comparison to the want of propriety so frequently, so much uniformly betrayed by herself, by your 3 younger sisters, and occasionally even by your father. I am well aware of the family obstacle. They have always opposed my inclination to you. I am so much in love as to wish to marry you in spite of all my objections. I hope that now I will be rewarded by your acceptance on my hand. Please consent to be my wife.
In such cases as this, it is, I believe, the established mode to express a sense of obligation for the sentiments avowed, however unequally they may be returned. But I cannot. I have never desired your good opinion, and you have certainly bestowed it most unwillingly. The feelings that you tell me have long prevented the acknowledgment of your regard can have little difficulty in overcoming it after this explanation.
And this is all the reply which I am to have the honor of expecting. I might wonder, perhaps, why with so little endeavor at civility I am thus rejected.
I might as well inquire why with so evident a desire of offending and insulting me, you chose to tell me that you liked me against your will, against your reason, and even against your character. Was not this some excuse for incivility if I was uncivil? But I have other provocations. Do you think that any consideration could tempt me to accept the man who has been the means of ruining, perhaps forever, the happiness of a most beloved sister? Can you deny that you have done it?
I have no wish of denying that I have done everything in my power to separate my friend from your sister, or that I rejoice in my success. Towards him I've been kinder than towards myself.
But it is not merely this affair on which my dislike of you is founded. Long before it had taken place, my opinion of you was decided. Your character was unfolded in the recital which I received many months ago from Mr. Wickham. On this subject, what have you to say?
And this is your opinion. I thank you for explaining it so fully. My faults, according to this calculation, are heavy indeed. Though perhaps these offenses might have been overlooked, had not your pride been hurt by the honest confession of the scruples which long since prevented any serious design. But disguise of every sort is my faults. Did you expect me to rejoice in the inferiority of your connections, to congratulate myself on the hope of relations with one whose position in life is so decidedly beneath my own?
You are mistaken, Mr. Darcy, if you suppose that the mode of your declaration has affected me in any other way than as it has spared me the concern which I might have felt in refusing you, had you behaved in a more gentlemanlike manner. You could not have made me the offer of your hand in any possible way that could have tempted me to accept it. I had not known you a month before I felt that you were the last man in the world that I could ever be prevailed upon to marry.
You did quite enough, madam. I perfectly comprehend your feelings, and have now only to be ashamed of my own ability. Forgive me for having taken up so much of your time, and accept my best wishes for your health and happiness. I've been walking the grove some time in hopes of meeting you. Will you do me the honor of reading this letter?
I will.
Be not alarmed, madam, by the reception of this letter, by the apprehension of its containing any repetition of the sentiments which last night were so disgusting to you. The effort of the formation and the perusal that this letter must occasion should have been spared, and that my pride required it to be written and read. Last night, you laid to my charge 2 offenses. The first, that I had separated Mr. Bingley from your sister, and the second, that I had, in defiance of various claims, ruined the immediate prosperity of Mr. Wickham. I had not been long Hertfordshire before I could see that Mr. Bingley preferred your elder sister to any other young woman in the country. My objections to the marriage are not merely those which I acknowledged to you last night. I remain convinced from the evening scrutiny that though she received his attentions with pleasure, she did not invite them by any participation of sentiment. I acted to preserve my friend from what I esteemed a most unhappy connection. As the one part of my conduct in the whole of this affair which I did not look back upon with satisfaction, and it is that I condescended to conceal from him your sister's being in town. I knew it myself, and it was known to Miss Bingley, but her brothers even yet ignorant of it. With regards to that other accusation, my excellent father died about 5 years ago, and in his will, he particularly recommended it to myself to promote the advancement of Mr. Wickham to the best ability that his profession might allow, and if he took orders, that a valuable family living might be made his as soon as it became vacant. There was also a legacy of £1,000. Mr. Wickham wrote to inform me that, having finally resolved against taking orders, he desired a more immediate pecuniary advantage. He had some intention of studying law, and the interest of £1,000 would be insufficient. Therefore, the business was soon settled. He resolved any claim to assistance in the church, and in return, he received £3,000. After this period, every appearance of acquaintance was dropped. How he lived, I know not. But last summer, he was once again most painfully obtruded on my notice. My sister, who was more than 10 years my junior, was left with the guardianship of myself and Colonel Fitzwilliam. Last summer, she went with a woman, Mrs. Young, to Ramsgate, and thither also went Mr. Wickham, undoubtedly by design, for there proved to be a prior acquaintance between himself and Mrs. Young, and by the connivance and aid, he so far recommended himself to Georgiana that she was persuaded to believe herself in love and to consent to an elopement. I arrived a day or two before the intended elopement, and Georgiana, unable to support the idea of offending a brother whom she looked up to as a father, acknowledged the whole to me. You may imagine how I felt and how I acted. Mr. Wickham's chief object was undoubtedly my sister's fortune, which is £30,000. Though I cannot help but suppose that the idea of avenging himself upon me was a chief inducement. His revenge would have been complete indeed. For the truth of all things here related, I can appeal most particularly to the testimony of Colonel Fitzwilliam. I shall endeavor to find some opportunity of putting this letter in your hands in the course of the morning. I can only add, God bless you, Fitzwilliam Darcy.
How despicably I have acted. I who have prided myself on my discernment. Had I been in love, I could not have been more wretchedly blind. Vanity, not love, has been my folly. Till this moment, I never knew myself.
Miss Elizabeth left Hansford the following morning.
and Mrs. Bennet had been in frequent discussion about Miss Lydia's scheme for the family to go to Brighton this summer to visit the Forsters and the regiment. Lydia has a great friend in Mrs. Forster, but whether or not she's a great influence has yet to be seen. But it is the last 2 weeks of the regiment's stay in Meryton, and I have often heard Miss Lydia exclaim that her heart will break.
Mr. Bennet will rejoice to have Miss Elizabeth and Miss Dane home.
Oh, if one could go to Brighton. Papa is so disagreeable.
A little sea bathing would set me up forever, and my appearance is sure to do me a great deal of good.
Well, Lizzie, what do you think now of this sad business of Jane's? For my part, I am determined never to speak of it again to anybody. There's no talk of his coming back to Netherfield in the summer, and I've inquired too of everybody who is likely to know.
I do not believe he will ever come to live at Netherfield anymore.
Well, my comfort is I'm sure Jane will die of a broken heart, and then he'll be sorry for what he has done.
I'm glad you've come back, Lizzie.
Mother, Mrs. Walter has invited to take me to Brighton with them. I cannot see why Mrs. Forster shouldn't ask me as well as Lydia, for I have just as much right to be asked as she has, and more too, for I am 2 years older. Lydia!
Father, I would advise against this. In all probability, Lydia will be more imprudent with such a companion as Mrs. Forster at Brighton, where the temptations must be greater than here at home.
Lydia will never be easy until she has exposed herself in some public place or other. And we can never expect her to do it with so little inconvenience or expense to her family as under the present circumstances.
If only you were aware of the very great disadvantage to us all which must arise from the public notice of Lydia's unguarded and imprudent behavior, nay, which has already arisen from it.
We shall never have peace at Longbourn if Lydia does not go to Brighton. Besides, Colonel Forster is a sensible man and will keep her out of any real trouble, and luckily she is too poor to be an object of prey to anybody. And besides, you will be off touring the countryside with your aunt and uncle.
Pemberley is not far from London. Oh, I should love to see that place again.
Well, I'm perfectly willing. What do you say, Lizzie?
I must own that I'm rather tired of seeing great houses.
Oh, but if Pemberley were merely a fine house richly furnished, I should not care for it myself. But the grounds are delightful, and they have some of the finest woods in the county.
We are certain that the family is not in residence for the summer.
I was told by the proprietor of the inn the family was not in residence.
Very well then.
Welcome to Pemberley. My name is Mr. Reynolds, and I am the housekeeper here at Pemberley. This was my old master's favorite room, and these miniatures are just as they used to be. He was very fond of them.
Is your master absent at present?
He is, but we expect him here tomorrow with a large party of guests.
Lizzie, come look at these pictures. How do you like this picture?
This is Mr. Wickham. He was the son of my late master's steward, and my late master looked after him, though, with some considerable expense. He is now in the army, but I'm afraid he has turned out rather wild. And this is my master, Mr. Darcy.
I've heard very much of your master's fine person, but Lizzie, you can tell us whether it is like or not.
Has this young lady met Mr. Darcy?
A little. Is your master often in Pemberley in the course of a year?
Not as much as I would like, but I dare say he spends half his time here. And Miss Darcy often comes down for the summer.
Yeah, well drawn pictures.
Indeed.
Well, Mr. Darcy might marry, but there is no one good enough for him.
It is very much to his credit. I'm sure that you should think so.
I've never heard a cross word from him in my life, and I have known him since he was 4 years old.
Mr. Darcy, I was told you were in London.
I'm not.
No.
Would you do me the honor of introducing me to your friend?
Oh, yes. My aunt and uncle, Mr. and Mrs. Gardner. This is Mr. Darcy, the master of Pemberley.
I'm pleased to meet you.
We were in tour in the area and heard that Pemberley is some of the finest woods in the country.
Have you had an opportunity to view the grounds? I would be honored if you allow me to show you around. Mr. Reynolds, how nice to see you. Please, let the steward know that I'll be with him in a short while. Please convey my apologies.
Very well, sir. Welcome home.
Please, come right this way. You enjoy fishing, Mr. Guys?
Indeed I do. I think I see the appearance of some sharks in the water, do I not?
Indeed you do. While you are staying in Lambeth, please, come and fish as often as you like. We can supply you with fishing tackle.
Thank you, Mr. Darcy. I'd be delighted.
Gentlemen, I apologize, but I find myself fatigued by the morning's exercise. Mr. Gardner, may I have your arm for support?
Of course, my dear. You'll excuse us, Mr. Darcy.
Of course, there's a shortcut back to the house just this way. We will have you back soon, Mrs. Guy. Will a cup of tea help provide you?
Thank you, Mr. Darcy. It would.
Your family's in good health, I trust.
They are, thank you. I was told by your housekeeper, Mr. Darcy, that you were in London and that you would certainly not be back until tomorrow.
Ah, I had some business with my steward that required my coming forward a few hours before the rest of the party. They will arrive early tomorrow. Among them are some who claim acquaintance with you, Mr. Bingley and his sister. There is also one other person in the party who more particularly wishes to be known to you. Would you allow me, or do I ask too much, to introduce my sister to your acquaintance during your stay at Lambeth?
I would be honored.
Georgiana, Miss Bennet. My brother has talked of you so often these last months that I feel as if I already know you well.
I would be honored to call you Georgiana, if you would return the courtesy and call me Elizabeth.
Oh yes, but it must be so very hard for you. Miss Elizabeth has 4 sisters. All of them are out in society at present.
Excuse us, ladies. We thought to intrude upon your gathering for just a moment. Mrs. Gardner, may I introduce to you Mr. Bingley? Mr. Gardner, may I introduce to you Miss Bingley and my sister, Miss Darcy?
Do you reside in Lambton, Mr. Gardner?
Unhappily, we do not. We are returning with my niece this summer. By her association, we are very fortunate indeed to be the recipient of Mr. Darcy's hospitality while we are in the area.
May I inquire after your sister, Miss Bennet?
Jane is quite well, thank you for asking.
It is a very long time since I have had the pleasure of seeing her. It is above 8 months now. I have not seen her since the 26th of November when we were all dancing together at Netherfield.
I believe it has been 8 months.
Mr. Gardner, would you join myself and Mr. Bingley at noon tomorrow for some more fishing?
Yes, Mr. Darcy, I thank you for the opportunity.
The Spanish chestnuts scattered over this intermediate lawn are lovely, Mr. Darcy.
Oh yes, Pemberley is the most beautiful place. Mr. Darcy takes special care of it and of all who reside here.
Thank you for the invitation to tea, Miss Darcy.
And for your hospitality, Mr. Darcy.
Miss Elizabeth, would you and Mr. and Mrs. Gardner dine with us this evening?
Oh, I would be honored.
I shall have the cook serve the excellent trout in the pot, Mr. Gardner. Your uncle, Miss Elizabeth, is a considerable fisherman.
Until this evening, then.
Until this evening.
Now, if you will excuse me, I'm going to practice.
Thank you for entertaining my guests, Georgiana. I'm sure they found you charming and your hospitality beyond compare.
Oh yes, but that is without question. You are always the favourite to Miss Georgiana in any society. How very ill Miss Eliza Bennet looked, Mr. Darcy. I never in my life saw anyone so much altered as she is since the winter. For my own part, I must confess, I never could see any beauty in her. Her face is too thin, and her features are not at all handsome. Her teeth are tolerable, I suppose, but not out of the common way. And in her eyes, which have sometimes been called so fine, I could never see anything extraordinary in them. They have a sharp, shrewish look, which I do not like at all. And in her air, there's altogether a self-sufficiency without fashion, which is intolerable.
Well, I consider her one of the handsomest women of my acquaintance.
A letter from Jane Bennet, miss. It must be urgent. They brought it directly from the inn.
Thank you.
Dearest Lizzie, something has occurred of a most unexpected and serious nature. An express came at 12 last night, just as we were all going to bed, from Colonel Forster, to inform us that Lydia was gone off to Scotland with Wickham. Imprudent as the marriage between Mr. Wickham and our poor Lydia would be, we are now anxious to be assured that it has taken place, for there is but too much reason to fear that they are not gone to Scotland. Mother believes the worst, but I cannot think so ill of him. As to my father, I never in my life saw him so affected. What he means to do, I am sure I know not. But his excessive distress will not allow him to pursue any measure in the best and safest way, as he goes to London with Colonel Forster instantly. In such an exigency, my uncle's advice and assistance would be everything in the world. He will immediately comprehend what I must feel, and I rely upon his goodness.
Miss Elizabeth, are you all right?
I have just had a letter from Jane with such dreadful news. It cannot be concealed from anyone. My youngest sister has left all her friends, has eloped, has thrown herself into the power of Mr. Wickham. They are gone off together from Brighton. You know him too well to doubt the rest. She has no money, no connections, nothing that can tempt him to. She is lost forever.
Is it certain? Absolutely certain.
Oh, yes. They left Brighton together on Sunday night and were traced almost to London, but not
has been done? What has been attempted to recover her?
My father is in London, but nothing can be done. I know very well that nothing can be done. I have not the smallest hope.
He went on Tuesday.
And have you heard from him?
He wrote a few lines on Wednesday to say that he arrived in safety, and that he should not write again until he had something of importance to mention.
Had Colonel Forrester had no apprehension of anything before the elopement took place?
Colonel Forrester did own that he often suspected some partiality, especially on Lydia's side, but nothing to give him any alarm. And did Colonel Forrester appear to think well of Wickham himself? That is, does he know your character?
I must confess that he did not speak so well of Wickham as he formerly did. He believed him to be imprudent and extravagant, and since this sad affair has taken place, it has been said that he left Meryton greatly in debt. But I hope this may be false. Lydia left a note from Mrs. Forrester. It is quite long, but the essential part, I believe, is, I am going to Gretna Green, and if you cannot guess with who, I should think you a simpleton. There is but one man in the world I love, and he is an angel. I should never be happy without him, so I think it is no harm to be off.
And your mother, how is she?
My mother is tolerably well, I trust, though her spirits are greatly shaken.
Oh, my dear brother, why did the Forsters ever let her out of their sight? Oh, there must have been some great neglect or other on their part, for she is not the kind of girl to do that sort of thing if she is well looked after. Oh, yes, Mr. Bennet gone away, and I know he will fight Wickham when he meets him, and then he will be killed. The Collinses will turn us out before he is gone to this grave.
Do not give way to useless alarm. It is not quite a week since they left for Brighton. In a few days more, we may receive a word of them. And until we know they are not married and have no intention of marrying, we must not give the matter over as lost. As soon as I get to town, I will consult with Mr. Bennet as to what is to be done. If I can, I will send them home to you.
Oh, that is exactly what I could most wish for. I am frightened out of my wits. I have such tremblings, such flutterings all over me. I can get no rest by night nor by day.
I will do what I can, but I must recommend moderation for you, for your hopes as well as your fears. I am off. Look for word from me as soon as I get there. Come, my dear.
God bless.
No post yet?
Not yet.
Today will bring news of importance, sir. I can feel it.
Where is Mrs. Bennet?
She is upstairs, sir. She will not be leaving her dressing room.
Mary, what are you reading?
Mr. Collins' letter, Father. It arrived yesterday.
Ah, yes, I remember. All right, don't read it all. Summertime.
That is difficult with Mr. Collins, Father. He sends his condolences and Lady Catherine's, I believe. He says, and Lady Catherine agrees, is to throw your unworthy child from your affection forever and leave her to reap the fruits of her own heinous offense. Otherwise, this one false step in one daughter will be injurious to the fortunes of all the others. Do you suppose them to be in London?
Why, yes. Where else can they be so well concealed?
If I should ever go to Brighton, I'd behave much better than Lydia.
No, no, Kitty, I've at last learned to be cautious, and you shall feel the effects of it. No officer is to ever enter into this house again. Balls are to be absolutely prohibited, and none of you are to stir out of doors until you can prove that you've spent at least 10 minutes of every day in a rational manner.
A letter for the master.
A letter by express. Jane, perhaps you would like to read it.
It's from my uncle. My dear brother, soon after you left me on Saturday, I was fortunate enough to find out in what part of London they are. They are not married. Nor can I find that there was any intention of being so. But if you are willing to perform the engagements that I have ventured to make on your side, I hope it will not be long before they are. All that is required of you is to assure your daughter her equal share of £5,000 secured among your children after the decease of yourself and my sister, and moreover to enter into an engagement of allowing her, during your life, £100 per annum. These conditions which, considering everything, I had no hesitation in complying with, send back your answer as fast as you can, and be careful to write explicitly. Yours, Edward Gardiner.
My dear father, I congratulate you.
There are two things I want very much to know. One is how much money your uncle laid to bring this about, and the other is how am I ever to repay him?
Money, my uncle. What do you mean, sir?
I mean that no man in his senses would marry Lydia on so slight a temptation as 100 a year during my life and 50 after I'm gone. Wickham's a fool if he takes it for less than £10,000. How is half such a sum to be repaid?
Unhappy as the event must be for Lydia, we may draw from it this useful lesson. The loss of virtue in a female is irretrievable, and that she cannot be too much guarded in her behavior towards the undeserving of the other sex. I hope and trust they will be happy. Yes, their mutual affection will steady them, and I flatter myself that they will settle so quietly and live in so rational a manner as may in time make their past imprudence forgotten. Their conduct has been such that neither you nor I nor anyone can ever forget it.
Oh, my dear, dear Lydia, I shall see her again. Oh, she will be married at 16. First, I must go to Meryton and tell the good news to my sister Phillips. And as I come back, I can call on Lady Lucas and Mrs. Long. Oh.
Tell me, Mr. Hill, why don't they ever agree to have her and her horrible husband?
I believe it was for the sake of propriety. It would not look right if Miss Lydia were not, begging your pardon, Mrs. Wickham were not noticed on her marriage by her parents.
If you do not admit her into the family again, it might hurt the other girls. So.
Yes, very good. When he arrives, show him into my study. We have some business to attend to.
Very good, sir. Poor man has paid all of Wickham's creditors, here and in Brighton. It is a good thing Wickham joined the regular army, and the two of them will be quartered in the north.
For Mr. Bennet and the other girls, it is a good thing, but it is very hard on the missus. Oh, I hear the carriage pulling into the yard.
Ah, Jane, I take your place now, and you must go lower because I am a married woman.
Only think it has been 3 months since I went away. Good gracious! When I went away, I'm sure I had no more idea of being married when I came back again. Though I thought it'd be very good fun if I was. I am sure all my sisters must envy me. They must all go to Brighton. That is must get husbands. What a pity it is, Mamma. We'd not all go. Very true, and if I had my will, we should. But my dear Lydia, I don't like you at all going such a way, or must it be so? We shall be in Newcastle all winter. You and Papa and my sisters must come down and see us. And then, when you go, you may leave one or two of my sisters
sisters behind you, and I dare say I should give them husbands before the winter is over.
I thank you for my share of the favor, but I do not particularly like your way of picking husbands.
Oh, Mama, I never gave you accounts of my wedding. I'm not too curious to hear how it was managed.
I think there cannot be too little said on the subject.
You are so strange. But I must tell you how it went off. We were married, at St. Clement's, because Wickham's lodgings were at that parish, and it was settled that we should all be there by 11 o'clock. My uncle and aunt and I were to go together, and the others were to meet us at the church. Well, Monday morning came, and I was in such a fuss. I was so afraid, that something would happen to put it off. Then I would have gone quite distracted. And there was my aunt all the time I was dressing, preaching and talking away, just as if she was reading a sermon. However, I did not hear one word above 10, for I was thinking, you may suppose, of my dear Wickham. Well, and just as the carriage came to the door, my uncle was called away on business to that horrid man, Mr. Stone. I was so frightened, I did not know what to do, for my uncle was to give me away. But luckily he came back in 10 minutes' time, and then we all set out. However, I recollected afterwards that if he had been prevented going, the wedding need not be put off, for Mr. Darcy might have done as well.
Mr. Darcy?
Oh yes, he was accompanied with Wickham, Oh, but gracious me, I quite forgot. I ought to have said a word about it. I promised him so faithfully. Oh, what will Wickham say? It was to be such a secret.
Lydia, if it was to be such a secret, say not another word on the subject. You may depend upon us to seek it no further.
Oh, yes, we will ask you no questions.
Thank you, for if you did, I should certainly tell you all. Mrs. Hill, look at my ring. I am the first one in the family to be married. You must call me Mrs. Wickham now.
Yes, congratulations, Mrs. Wickham, on your nuptial. The gentlemen are coming down, I believe.
I received my commission before we left London, and I'm to join my regiment at the end of the week. We must leave shortly, so we can arrive in good time.
Well, Mama, what do you think of my husband? Is not he a charming man?
Oh, yes, he is indeed, my love. Come, tell me everything.
So, sister, I find from Mr. and Mrs. Gardiner that you have actually seen Pemberley.
Yes.
I almost envy you the pleasure, and yet I think it would be too much for me. I thought I understood from the Gardiners that you ran into Mr. Darcy while you were at Lambton.
Yes, he introduced us to his sister.
And you like her?
Very much.
I've heard indeed that she is uncommonly improved in this last year or two. When I last saw her, she was not very promising. I'm very glad you liked her, and I hope she will turn out well.
I dare say she will. She has gotten over the most trying age.
Did you go by the village of Kempton? I only mention it because it is the living that I ought to have had. An excellent parsonage house. It would have suited me in every respect.
I have heard it said that at one point you actually cleared your resolution of never taking orders and that you were compensated accordingly.
You did? Well, that was not wholly without foundation.
Come, Mr. Wickham, we are brother and sister, you know. Let us not quarrel about the past. In the future, I hope we shall always be of one mind.
Thank you for your hospitality. We should be going.
Oh, my dear Lydia, when shall we meet again?
Oh, Lord, I don't know. Not these 2 or 3 years, perhaps.
Oh, write to me very often, my dear.
As often as I can, but married women have never much time for writing. My sisters may write to me, for they will have nothing else to do.
As the French say, never mind the French. Goodbye.
I often think there's nothing so bad as losing one's friends. One seems so forlorn without them.
That, madam, is the consequence of marrying a daughter. It must make you better satisfied that the other 4 are still single.
Oh.
arrival of a master, Mr. Bingley, who is to arrive there in a day or two, to shoot there for several weeks.
It is certain that Mr. Bingley is coming.
Yes, ma'am. He comes down on Thursday at the latest, but very likely on Wednesday. His sisters will not be coming with him.
Thank you, Mrs. Hill. Did you hear that, Jane? Not that I care about you, though. He is nothing to us, you know, and I'm sure I shall never want to see him again. But, however, he is very welcome to come if he likes it, and who knows what may happen.
I assure you this news affects me with neither pleasure nor pain. I'm glad he comes alone because then we shall see less of him. It is hard that this poor man cannot come to a house. He is legally hired, without raising all this speculation.
I've just seen him from my dressing window. He's entered the parlor. He's running towards the house.
For pity's sake, Kitty, who?
Mr. Bingley. And there's a gentleman with him who looks just like that man who was with him before. Mr. What's his name? That tall, proud man.
Goodness gracious. Mr. Darcy. Well, any friend of Mr. Bingley's is welcome here, to be sure. But as I say, I hate the very sight of him. Oh, everyone, compose yourself!
Mr. Bingley and Mr. Darcy.
Mr. Bingley, how good of you to visit. You're welcome to, Mr. Darcy. Please, do sit down.
Thank you, Mrs. Bennet.
It has been a long time, Mr. Bingley, since you went away. A great many changes have come to the neighbourhood. Miss Lydia is settled and married to Mr. Wickham. You must have seen it in the papers.
Yes, I did hear of it, and I offer my congratulations.
It is a fine thing to have a daughter well married, to be sure. But at the same time, Mr. Bingley, it is very hard to have her taken such away from me. They have gone down to Newcastle, a place quite northward from here, and are to stay I do not know how long. Thank goodness he has some friends, though not as many as he deserves.
I trust Mr. and Mrs. Gardner are well.
They are, thank you. And your sister, Miss Georgiana?
She is well, thank you.
Well, thank you for the visit, Miss Bennet. Ladies.
You are visiting my debt, Mr. Bingley, for when you went away last winter, you promised to take a family dinner with us. You're welcome to, Mr. Darcy, of course. Would Tuesday suit you?
Yes, of course I did promise to have dinner with the family. And Tuesday would suit me. Thank you.
Thank you for your gracious invitation. Good day.
Now that this first meeting is over, I feel perfectly easy. I know my own strength and I shall never be embarrassed again by his coming. I'm glad you will dine on Tuesday.
He is come. Mr. Bingley is coming. Oh, he is indeed.
Okay.
Mr. Bingley, did you forget something?
Yes, ma'am, I did. If I could speak with Miss Bennet alone for a moment.
Yes. Oh, yes, of course. Kitty, Mary, Lizzie, come upstairs a moment.
Miss Bennet. Jane. Well, for some time now, Jane, well, I've loved you. Would you do me the honor and...
Yes. Oh, yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Oh, Jane, I'm the happiest man there ever was. Well, I must speak to your father. May I? Where do I go? Is he...
He's down the hall to the left.
Yes. I'll be back in just a moment. Don't change a thing.
Why is not everyone as happy? could see you as happy. If there was such another man for you.
If you were to give me 40 such men, I could never be so happy as you. Till I have your disposition, your goodness, I can never have your happiness. No, let me shift for myself, and perhaps if I have very good luck, I may meet with another Mr. Collins in time. Oh, Jane.
Jane, I am very pleased to see you so well together. I have no doubt of you doing very well together. Your tempers are by no means unlike. You are both of you so complying that nothing will ever be resolved upon. So easy that every servant will cheat you. And so generous that you will always exceed your income.
Exceed their income? Oh, my dear Mr. Bennet, don't you know he has 4,000 or 5,000 or perhaps more a year? Oh, I was sure you could not be so beautiful for nothing.
It has been just 1 week since Miss Jane was engaged to Mr. Bingley, and the whole American has pronounced the Bennets to be the luckiest family in the world.
And to think, only a few weeks ago when Miss Lydia first left Brighton, the Bennet family was said to be marked out for misfortune. Who was in that carriage that arrived just now?
That was Lady Catherine de Bourgh. She wished to speak with Miss Lizzie, and now they're out walking about the lawn.
I wonder why she has come.
You can be at no loss, Miss Bennet, to understand the reason of my journey hither. Your own heart, your own conscience must tell you why I come.
Indeed, you are mistaken, madame. I have not been at all able to account for the honor of seeing you here.
I am not to be trifled with. However insincere you may choose me, you shall not find me so. A report of a most alarming nature reached me 2 days ago. I was told that not only your sister was on point of being most advantageously married, but that you, Miss Elizabeth Bennet, would in all likelihood be soon afterwards united to my nephew, my own nephew, Mr. Darcy. Though I knew it must be a scandalous falsehood, I instantly resolved on setting off for this place that I might make my sentiments known to you.
If your ladyship believed it impossible to be true, I wonder you took the trouble of coming so far.
If! Do you then pretend to be ignorant of it? Has it not been industriously circulated by yourselves? Can you declare that there is no foundation for it?
I do not pretend to possess equal frankness with your ladyship. You may ask questions which I shall choose not to answer.
This is not to be borne. Miss Bennet, I insist on being satisfied. Has he, my nephew, made you an offer of marriage?
Your ladyship has declared it to be impossible.
It ought to be so. It must be so while he retains the use of his reason. But your arts and allurements may, in a moment of infatuation, make him forget what he owes to himself and to all his family.
If I have, then I should be the last person to confess it.
I am the nearest relation he has in the world, and am entitled to know all his dearest concerns.
But you are not entitled to know mine.
This match, to which you have the presumption to aspire, can never take place. No, never. Mr. Darcy is engaged to my daughter. Now what have you to say?
If he is so, then you can have no reason to suppose that he will make an offer to me.
Their engagement is of a peculiar kind. His mother and I planned it in their infancy. And what is there to divide them? The upstart pretensions of the young woman without family, connections, or fortune?
Whatever my connections may be, if your nephew does not object to them, then they can be nothing to you.
Tell me once and for all, are you engaged to him?
I am not.
And can you promise me never enter into such an engagement?
I will make no promise of the kind.
Miss Bennet, I am shocked and astonished. I expected to find a more reasonable young woman. I'm no stranger to the particulars of your youngest sister's infamous elopement. I know it all, that the young man's marrying her was a patched-up business at the expense of your father and uncles. And is such a girl to be my nephew's sister? Is her husband, the son of his late father's steward, to be his brother? Heaven and earth, what are you thinking? Are the shades of Pemberley to be thus polluted?
You can have nothing further to say. You have insulted me in every possible way, and I must beg you to leave.
I take no leave of you, Miss Bennet. I send no compliments to your mother. You deserve no such attention. I am most seriously displeased.
Lizzie, whose carriage has just left? Lady Catherine de Bourgh.
Lady Catherine was here. She came to see you. She must have been in the area and wanted us all to know that Mr. and Mrs. Collins send their regard. Isn't that so, Lizzie?
Yes.
She might have some business with Mr. Darcy. He is to come to Netherfield this afternoon. I expected him to call here before now. Maybe some business with his aunt has delayed him.
Mr. Darcy is coming here?
I thought so, yes.
I need to go for a walk. Jane, please, and Mr. Bingley. It is such a lovely day. Will you walk with me? Certainly. Mr. Darcy.
Good day. May I join you?
Of course, we were just going for a walk. Mr. Darcy, I am a very selfish creature, and for the sake of giving relief to my own feelings, cannot how much I may be wounding yours. Ever since I have learned of your unexampled kindness to my poor sister, I can no longer help thanking you. I have been most anxious to acknowledge to you how gratefully I feel it. Were it known to the rest of my family, I should not have merely my own gratitude to express.
I am sorry, exceedingly sorry, that you've ever been informed of what may have, in a mistaken light, have given you uneasiness. I did not think Mrs. Gardiner was so little to be trusted.
Oh, you must not blame my aunt. Lydia's thoughtlessness first betrayed to me that you had been concerned in the matter. Let me thank you again and again on behalf of all my family for that generous compassion which has induced you to take so much trouble and bear so many mortifications for the sake of discovering them.
If you will thank me, let it be for yourself alone. Your family owes me nothing. Much as I respect them, I believe I thought only of you. You are too generous to trifle with me. If your feelings are still what they were last April, tell me so at once. My affections and wishes are unchanged. But one word from you will silence me on the subject forever.
Mr. Darcy, my sentiments have undergone so material a change since the period to which you allude that I receive with gratitude and pleasure your present assurances.
Then you will.
I will.
Dear Aunt Catherine! Her visit to you taught me to hope as I had scarcely allowed myself to hope before. I knew enough of your disposition to be certain that had you been absolutely, irrevocably decided against me, you'd have acknowledged it, Lady Catherine, frankly and openly.
Yes, you know enough of my frankness to believe me capable of that. After abusing you so abominably to your face, I could have no scruple in abusing you to all your relations.
What did you say of me that I did not deserve?
Let us not quarrel for the greater share of blame annexed to that evening. The conduct of neither, if strictly examined, will be irreproachable, but since then we have both, I hope, improved in civility.
Then I have your consent to go and speak with your father?
You do. I will take you to him now.
out of your senses to be marrying this man? We don't always hated him. He is rich, to be sure, and has many more fine carriages and fine clothes than Jane. But will they make you happy?
Have you any other objection than your belief of my indifference?
None at all. We know him to be a proud, unpleasant sort of man. But this would be nothing at all if you really liked him.
I do like him, Father. I love him. Indeed, he has no improper pride. He is perfectly amiable. You do not know what he really is.
I have given him my consent. He's the kind of man indeed to which I would never refuse anything which he condescended to ask. But let me ask you to think better. I know your disposition, Lizzie, and that you could be neither truly happy nor respectable unless you really esteemed your husband. My child, let me not see you have the grief of being unable to respect your partner in life.
I do like him, Father. Really, I do. I wouldn't have accepted him if I didn't.
Well, I have nothing more to say. If this be the case, he deserves it. I could not have parted with you, my dear Lizzie, to anyone less worthy. And if any young men come in for marry a kitty, send them in, for I am quite at leisure.
Thank you all so much for coming. Before y'all go, I just wanted to thank a couple more people. So could I have Josh and Mrs. Levins and Lily and Caleb and Addie and Emily come forward? So this wonderful team made all of this happen. Josh and his whole family made the entire set and donated most of their living room furniture. Addie and Lily made all of the costumes. Caleb ran all the lights and spent 2 hours figuring out how to run the system with me. And precious Emily over here was my assistant director and put up with me this whole year and last year. And I'm so thankful for you. And Mrs. Levins. Our character sponsor. She did everything. She helped me so much, and she loved all of us and was basically a mom for all of us. I think you would all agree. And yeah, I love her. thank you guys for coming.
And we would all really like to thank you. We would all really like to thank you, Amy. This was amazing. 2 nights. When Amy said at the beginning of the year, well, first of all, I really want to do Pride and Prejudice, and I thought, really, we have to do that? Yes, okay, yes, we're going to say yes. And then somewhere in there she said, you need to do 2 shows. And I just told her, I really thought you were crazy. But I really also can't say no to her. And so she was completely right. We have had a full house 2 nights, and these kids have performed amazingly. It has been a privilege on my part to watch the effort that they have all put in. They have done this. They have wrought it. The costumes, the props, oh my goodness, the props. Emily and Amy coordinating, and just the script writing. What you see was put together by these kids. Amy, the amazing scene, the remembering scene with the letter, Amy created that. So they have done it all, and I cannot be more proud of them.